Thank you for tuning in to ThinkTech Friday. I'm your host, Attila Seress. And we're going to talk to Dr. David Young. Now, David Young is here with us here in the studio. He's a child ophthalmologist. And let's talk about this study that you brought up a little bit earlier, which was about eyes and video games. So first, thank you for joining us at the show.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you. And thank you for having me on your last show ever in the entire universe, since this is the 21st and this may be the end of the world. So thank you very much.
Well, according to David Eugene, we still have some time left, which is good.
I hope he's right. At least we have another 50 minutes before we got to go.
We have that, and hopefully I think things are going to get better. So let's talk about video games. And what does that mean? Tell me about this study.
Now, even before talking about this study, because I know the way this show works is you like to have something new for the speaker to talk about. And Yao's kind of doing some research, and there was something new about video games and the eyes. Mm-hmm. But even before talking about that, I just want to talk about why this even matters to me. And mostly it's because, for what I do, so I'm a pediatric ophthalmologist. I'm a medical doctor.
What is that? Tell me, what is
yeah,
an ophthalmologist?
So I'm a medical doctor. I went to medical school here in Hawaii, John A. Bird's School of Medicine. I'm not going to tell you when I went, but it was here. And went away to what they call residency, where you do specialty training in some type of specialization in medicine. For instance, there are surgeons that do just surgery. There are pediatricians that specialize in kids. There are kind of family practitioners, psychiatrists, and then there are ophthalmologists. Ophthalmologists are medical doctors that specialize in the diseases of the eyes and of knowing how to help people with their vision. And if needed, we'll do surgery on the eyes, like cataract surgery, glaucoma surgery. What I do a lot of is something called strabismus surgery. So strabismus means where the eyes don't line up correctly. Here in Hawaii, it may be known as cock eye. Sometimes people say that. They may know somebody who has cock eye, so meaning the eyes cross. That's something that I see a lot of, and or even where people have eyes that wander or drift apart. That's called strabismus. And so there is a type of surgery that can sometimes help with that. It's confusing because sometimes people think about strabismus, meaning a misalignment of the eye, and then they get confused with this idea of a lazy eye. So a lot of times people will come to see me because they say, hey, my uncle had lazy eye or something like that. And I have to actually ask them, well, what do you mean by that? What does that mean, lazy eye? Because lazy eye, maybe they're meaning that the eyes wander or cross. Maybe they mean that the eyelid is droopy. I have to kind of tease it out. What do you mean by that? What does that mean, lazy eye? Because some people mean lazy eye to mean the eye doesn't function well, that the vision is poor. And that kind of brings up this subject about video games, and I'll get to that and how that works. But what happens a lot of times is your kid, is not really complaining about their vision. They'll go see the pediatrician, and as part of the well baby check, the well child check, they'll look at the ears and the eyes, and they'll kind of, hammer the knees, things like that. They'll get their immunizations. If they're old enough, they will actually test the vision in each eye. And they have to do it one eye at a time, because otherwise the kids sometimes cheat.
Oh, really?
Right. So what they're doing is, you may remember this, because it probably wasn't too long ago for you, but you stand in the hall, and the pediatrician or the nurse helping will have you cover one eye. You have to read the chart, the eye chart. You have to stand 20 feet away. And you read the eye chart with one eye. Oh, great, you did great. And then you do the other eye. And you got to do one eye at a time, because otherwise you won't know if one eye is lazy or not, meaning you won't know if there is what they call amblyopia. So this is I know we're getting kind of crazy with the terminology, but I'm sorry, so there's this issue that happens in children called amblyopia, and that's, some people call that a lazy eye, meaning one eye can't see as well as the other. And so there's different ways that kids can get amblyopia. The first way is maybe their eyes cross. And so that's why you can see where the confusion happens, because sometimes people have eyes that cross, and that causes amblyopia, meaning one eye crosses. That actually makes that eye that's crossed can't see very well, so they can develop poor vision. Another way you can get poor vision as a child is, instead of the eyes not lining up well, maybe one eye is perfect, but the other eye needs glasses, or somehow some of the prescription in that eye is not so good. And so one eye is better than the other, the brain only uses the good eye. The other
Oh, I
eye
see.
starts becoming not used, and so it's almost like it's atrophied.
So if you don't get that corrected early on, does that affect you later in life?
Right, that's the problem. Is that the reason the pediatricians will screen for this early
Okay.
on is because they're looking for amblyopia. So this is something we're going to have to talk about because this is very important.
Sounds good. Well, keep us tuned in. This is Attila Seress for ThinkTech Friday, broadcasting on KGU 760 AM, here with Dr. David Young, talking about eyes and children. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. Thank you for staying tuned. This is Attila Seress with ThinkTech Fridays. We're live, and we're here talking with Dr. David Young about children's eyes and what it could mean if your children play video games. According to a recent study, there is some interaction with video games and how the eyes work in children. Where we last left the conversation, we were talking about the different types of disorders that children have, how we can have a lazy eye, or maybe not so much of a lazy eye, but one of them isn't working as well as they can. His job as an ophthalmologist is to detect these issues and find ways to correct them. But let's move on to the really exciting study that you were talking about. This looks really cool.
No, I can't move on to the study yet.
Not yet.
I gotta set up the program. They
Okay.
Because no, it's true. I will get there. I know you guys really want to hear about the study.
Yeah.
But let me first kind of go through again some of the words we use because I know these are new words for a lot of people. So I was talking about amblyopia
Yeah.
and how
Which was
one eye can't see as well as the other, or somehow in childhood something's wrong with the eye that doesn't allow the brain to learn how to see. And this is a disease that only happens in children because the child's brain is learning about their world, and just the way that we're programmed, if you don't get the proper stimulation for that sense, your brain at a certain point, at a certain age, will never learn how to use that eye. So this is what's weird about this condition. It only happens in children, and they felt it pretty much only happened before age 7 or 8. And this is the idea of neuroplasticity and all these words,
Yeah.
but the idea that there's a critical point in your life where if you don't learn that, you'll never will. The idea of you can't teach an old dog new tricks, this kind of concept of like language, where some people feel you can learn language really easily when you're 1 or 2. But if you try to pick up a foreign language when you're 12, then you're always going to have an accent.
Yeah, I remember back in college there was a study about cats, and they raised them in this box that had only vertical stripes. And then when they let them out into the real world, they couldn't see any of the horizontal stripes, and they couldn't navigate a maze. So it's the same kind of idea. Your brain develops at a certain time, and if
That's
you
right.
don't have that sort of interaction, I know. I mean, I have a 3-year-old, so I get it. If you don't, love and hold and really, spend that time with your children, they do suffer later on in life. So it seems like it's all walks of life, and the eyes being we have most of our brain used for our vision, right? Is that not right?
Yeah, no, I mean, vision is very important. I'm biased, but yes, it's very important. And, the story you told about the cats, that was the rated G version of what they did for the cats. Because what they did, actually, they did that in Harvard in the 60s, where they actually, when they were young, when they were born, they stitched one eye closed. And then they kind of didn't allow stimulation for that eye. And then later on, when the cat was older, they let the eye open, and they found that eye never learned how to see well because they missed that critical period.
Oh, I see.
And actually, it was so some of these, I don't want to get into the ethics of some of these studies done in the past.
Well, they don't do them anymore.
No, they don't. But that was the idea. The idea was that there's a critical period, and vision is such an important sense that the critical period is actually very early in life. And so some of these cats, even if they did a study later where, they took an older cat, shut their eye for a year or two, let the eye open again, and no big deal, they could see fine. So it's only a disease in kids, this idea of amblyopia, the idea that the brain is learning how to see, and that if one eye can't see, then if you don't catch it early, it may be permanent. And so there's 3 kinds. There's that strabismic amblyopia where the eyes cross. There's what I was talking about earlier, the refractive amblyopia, where maybe one eye needs glasses, but the other eye doesn't. And then the third way is what they call occlusive amblyopia, and that's what the cats had, right? They had an eye that was closed, couldn't see any light at all. And so that is the
Occlusion.
worst, occlusive amblyopia.
Occlusion. I know that word occlusion. I seen experience that a lot on the freeway. When I'm
Occlusion, right.
Trying to drive. I got an occluded freeway on that H1 there. So, okay, so occluded amblyopia. Got
That's
it.
right.
Okay.
So those are the 3 types. This brings us to this great study. And I'll say not so much great, but this kind of a interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so it can be considered controversial because it involves video games, and that gets back to why I was talking about it. It's because a lot of times parents will ask me about video games, good, bad, and obviously it's not that simple. But so this study was done in Canada, and it came out this year. And what happened was this psychologist had 7 adults. These are adults now, but they had occlusive amblyopia in both eyes when they were children. They were born with cataracts.
Oh, I see. So when both eyes had
in
the
both
cataracts.
eyes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had cataracts in both eyes. They had surgery early on. So, not bad vision, but not good vision, like kind of poor vision. This psychologist has been following them over time. So this psychologist took these 7 adults, and they had poor vision. She took them, trained them using 10 hours of training for Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
They had them sit down, learn how to play Call of Duty, and they played Call of Duty for a month.
Oh, really?
They did 10 hours a week, and so after 40 hours of playing Call of Duty.
Well, let's talk about Call of Duty. What
Wait,
is?
no, you know what? I'm sorry. See, I don't play these games, so I don't know.
Okay.
So they Call of Duty was one of them. This study, they did Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor.
Yeah,
But that's
sorry about that. Do you know this game?
Well, I'm familiar with video games, and it sounds to me like this is one of those type of games where it's from a first-person shooter perspective. So it's as if you were standing there yourself with a gun.
Right, and so I know this is
part of the
especially
team.
controversial because
Yeah.
of what happened last week in Connecticut. So I mean, again, I just want this to come out. This is science. I'm just talking about it scientifically. I'm not saying plus or minus about it. I just have to interpret it as a physician and then try to help my patients, see what they can do with this information. But anyway,
Right.
yes, first-person shooter. That's the way they would describe it. And so these adults, 7 of them, so small study in Canada, right? So, they're not very violent there anyway, right? So they're in Canada, 7 adults. They found that there was a small improvement in vision
from the stimulation.
from the stimulation of 40 hours worth of first-person shooter game in patients who should not have been able to improve since they were past that time. They were already past the critical age where the brain should be flexible. And so this psychologist was saying, wow, this proves that even an adult, the visual system can be flexible. Of course, again, it was a small improvement. We don't even know if it's going to last, right? This study doesn't even look at that. The study just did, could there be any improvement? And there was a small improvement. And so it makes it difficult for me because then I've got gamer friends that are telling me, oh yeah, video games are good for the eyes. Video games have been proven to improve vision. And, it's hard for me to tell them no because there is data out there that
That
some of
supports
these
it. Yeah.
things, you do get better. I mean, but I try to tell them that maybe that's just practice. Maybe that's just like, you practice anything well enough or long enough, hard enough that you're going to get better at it. Maybe they could have seen better had they done some intense kind of work, not just the first-person shooter, but maybe something else. Maybe, Sim 2 or whatever.
Something else. And, I actually have a story to share. But before I share my story, if you have a story to share about someone that you know whose eyes have improved due to using them in a different way, give us a call at 296-5467 and tell us all about it. Now, for my story it's my grandfather's still alive. He's in his late 80s, and he started getting into going online and emailing people and reading stuff on the internet some time ago, and at a very early age he actually fell on a loom back in the old country, and the loom punctured one of his eyes, and since then he's only had one functional eye. Well, lo and behold, after years of looking on the computer and sending lots of emails and reading about the news, all of a sudden one day the eye starts working. So you would consider it like a miracle, right? This much older man has spent lots of hours focusing on this computer screen. It's not a violent video game, but he got some sort of improvement out of it.
So stories like that exist, And here's where I'm going to have to unfortunately not accept your story as a scientist. I can't say that, this is not this is not randomized, controlled study. So the power of the study, I could say, well, this study that I'm talking about only had 7 people. So therefore, again, it's not the most, the best study in the world. Same with your story, right? Who knows? Maybe his vision wasn't that bad anyway, but, got him out of the army or whatever. Who knows? We don't know. So some of these things, it's going to take more studies before I can tell my patients that, okay, their vision may be able to improve if they do certain video games. So I actually tell my patients that they shouldn't do a lot of video games. I tell them,
really?
Yeah, because there's definitely, so what is known as far as the way the video games affect the eyes is, number one, their eyes can become more irritated. They don't blink enough. There's actually warnings on the boxes. You can have seizures, right? So those are studies done in Japan where there is a higher rate of seizure disorder, kind of it being affected by video games. Not all of them, but some video games. Is that because they're staying up late at night doing it, or is it because of the actual flashing lights? So I don't know, but I mean, there is something where you have to be careful. So I tell people, don't play more than 1 hour a day. And then if you're going to play maybe 20 minutes and then take a break, go do something else. So,
Okay.
Even there's a higher rate of obesity, there's a higher rate of attention disorder. And there were some studies, although not all studies, that felt that there is an increase in the amount of aggression in children when they're doing these games. And, again, this is kind of different than even what this study is that I was talking about. This study was done in adults. So I don't want people extrapolating from this study, oh, Dr. Young says that, first-person shooters is going to improve my vision. I mean, the judgment is not out yet. But it is interesting, so I wanted to kind of bring that up.
So what we're talking about is adults who are level-headed, well-intentioned people.
As we all are here in Hawaii.
And, they can improve their vision. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get back from the break. This is Attila Seress for ThinkTech Friday, broadcasting on KGU 760 AM, here with Dr. David Young, talking about your eyes. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break. This is Attila Seress with KGU 760 AM for ThinkTech Fridays. We're back in the conversation with Dr. David Young. We're talking about eyes, we're talking about children's eyes, and we're talking about how video games can change all that. If you have a story to share or you'd like to tell us about your situation, feel free to give us a call, 296-5467. Well, we were last talking about, where we last left off, we were talking about how some of these video games may make a difference if you're an adult, and if you are an adult and you're level-headed and you use video games responsibly, you may get a little bit of an improvement in your vision. Does that sound?
Yeah, I want to clarify that. No, okay. Very good, very good. So, this is the hard part about studies that come out into the news, is that it is confusing, and then sometimes a study will come out. A newscast will start talking about it, and there's a misconception about what that means. This study came out, therefore, video games are good for you, or video games are. Another one came out like that. Even the idea of like when somebody said like maybe a glass of wine might be good for you, and then a glass of wine is good for you. I mean, this kind of gets out of control. So this
classical music being good for your kids.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but it is good for your kids actually.
It is.
But no. So I think that this is what's the problem with some of the scientific studies that come out, and so yet this did come out. There's this study. It wasn't in normal people. If you want to extrapolate, you can extrapolate this way. So here's this: if you had congenital cataracts in both eyes, and you had them taken out, and you had poor vision, and you played 40 hours worth of Medal of Honor, you may, because not all of them did, but you may get a slight increase in your vision. We don't know if that would be long-lasting. We don't know if it had to be a first-person shooter game.
Yeah, it could have been a screensaver.
We don't know anything. Maybe it just was you were actually concentrating on something for a while. Maybe you actually, so that's the hard thing about these studies. It was a well put together study, but it's a small study. It was a unique type of population. And so I don't want people to think that, Dr. Young is saying video games are good for the eyes, because I actually don't. And like I said, I try to keep my patients from playing a lot of video games. There definitely is proof that it makes the eyes more irritated. A lot of patients will come see me where the mom and dad are concerned because the kid's blinking all the time. I don't know what's going on. Is it just like a behavior? What's going on? He keeps blinking all the time. And a lot of times it's because the eye's irritated. They're either watching TV or playing these video games. They're just staring at it. And they're staring at it, and the eyes kind of get a little dry. Maybe there's some allergies going on from the mangoes or whatnot. And then they start blinking a lot. And then it becomes like a habit. And it can seem kind of troublesome. So I tell people, stop the video games. Maybe reduce the amount of TV, and sometimes even just by doing nothing, it can get better. Sometimes we use allergy drops or different things. Anyway, that's kind of off the subject. But the idea, though, that video games, it's not totally benign.
Well, is there an interaction with our mental attitude towards these things? Like, for example, if someone is expecting their eyes to get better from concentrating on lots of moving things on a screen, then maybe the body has the ability to heal itself in some way.
Right.
I mean, when I cut myself, my body heals. I mean, is there a way to do that?
I think that's a good way to look at this, in that this isn't just kind of giving a blanket video games good for eyes. It's saying that, because those are some of the measures that were tested. Contrast sensitivity, meaning differentiating shades of gray. And yeah, in these these kind of first-person shooter games, that my understanding is that's what you're doing. You're searching the screen. You're looking for subtle findings to know your target. They showed that your ability to see movements was a little bit better. So these things actually did improve. So if anything, it just tells me that, and my dad taught me this a long time ago, just if you practice, you'll get better. And so in this case, I feel like it's focused practice on what you're then going to be tested on. And so I don't think there's anything specifically good about the first-person shooter games, except that when they tested some of these visual functions, that was what they were practicing.
So concentrated effort.
Exactly.
That's really what makes it all happen.
Yeah, that's really good.
And then, I guess it seems to me like they need to keep that up if they want to keep that improved vision also, right?
So we can theorize, but as far as the studies, they're not out there yet. So, what has been shown, and this is where I go back to how this is my kind of area, is that if you do the idea of testing vision in a child, and once you're diagnosed with amblyopia, I'm not telling you go out and play video games, but after you're diagnosed, there are treatments that we can do to improve the vision. That's known. That is solid fact. This other stuff that I'm talking about with this one study, again, just kind of a blip on the screen, just something interesting to talk about, but not something that I want people to apply to their kids, because I don't recommend video games for kids.
Well, and so, I mean, as parents, really, what should we be doing? I mean, obviously, we think that our kids are perfect when they come out, and, as they grow up, everything seems okay. I mean, should we be looking out for something? Is there some telltale sign we should be looking out for, or is it just really obvious?
So, and I'm going to only talk about it in terms of the eyes, because, it sounds like you're talking more about, a good kid, and I'm sure all the kids are good, and no one, they're okay. Everyone's doing their best. But as far as the eyes, you're looking for blinking.
Blinking, okay.
Yeah, if you notice that your kid is blinking a lot, or if they're rubbing the eyes, or if the eyes are tearing a lot, or if the eyes look red, if they're complaining that the eyes are owie or somehow uncomfortable, if they go super close to the screen, maybe they're just trying to get in on the action, but it could be a sign that maybe the vision is not perfect. And then definitely go to your pediatrician's appointments so that they can screen the vision professionally.
Oh, I see. So the pediatrician does the first screening.
They do the real screenings.
And then if they see something,
then they'll get referred, because it's one thing to just say, oh yeah, my kid doesn't listen, right? I mean, maybe that's just being a kid, right? And then, or maybe, it doesn't seem, hey, where's that ball? Oh, it's over there. Oh, yeah. I mean, some things you may just be them fooling around, but the pediatrician will actually screen for real. Or, if there's a family history of eye problems, sometimes people come see me just, off the street.
Oh, so so maybe as parents we should look out for any sort of family history of eye problems. We should look out for any sort of blinking or tearing
any kind
or
of
redness.
Abnormal look of the eyes. Like if the eyes look abnormal, of course, if they're crossed or something that doesn't seem quite right about the way the eyes look, or if there's a question about the way they seem to function. Like you think your kid can't see well because they're always sitting up close or things like that.
Okay, so it's not just the cartoons with lots of flashing lights. It's
Yeah.
them actually, because that's the other thing I noticed. When you look at Scooby-Doo from
Yeah.
20, 30
I
years
don't
ago,
think
it's
people know
nice
what
and
that means,
slow.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. That type of cartoon.
Yeah, it's like the slower, maybe the Smurfs.
That's
you know,
my
those-
generation, the Smurfs.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like nice and slow, but the newer ones I notice are really intense. There's a lot of flashing, a lot of colors, and
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that those types of programs are bad for you. There's no proof that watching TV, using video, iPad, or your
Screen
iPhone,
time.
there's no proof that screen time makes the vision worse.
Hmm.
So that's the thing that moms and dads always ask me, like, oh, it's going to make their vision worse. There's no proof. I mean, it can make it irritated, but there's nothing that says that, yeah, your kid's guaranteed to get glasses because they watched TV or because they did the computer time. So that's hard. I mean, the kids are always smiling when I say something like that, but I do tell people to take a break. I try not to have them do more than an hour.
But you will need glasses if you say do a lot under poor lighting, or is there anything where
Yes,
we should
yeah.
leave the lights on in the room
So
when
there
we're
are
watching
theories,
TV?
right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, and I can go with that. It's like there are theories that intense and long near activity, dim light, things like that, that may influence, and that's what we're kind of taught as lay people, and so I have to kind of at least say that that's a theory, but it hasn't been proven. I mean, I know, same anecdotal. You're talking about your relative who had that the poor eye and got better.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, I had friends in medical school where they didn't need glasses, and then they went to medical school, and then now they all need glasses. And same with
So
like
medical
law
school causes
Right, exactly. Right. So this
eye
idea,
fatigue.
there's something about using the eyes too much, therefore you've damaged your eyes. There's no proof that by using the eyes, you're damaging your eyes. But again, we got to always qualify that. We don't know everything. I'm just going to say though that there's no proof. So
We just have a bunch of anecdotal evidence. So
Right.
cheap sunglasses, we don't know.
yeah, but I would
low
say that
light,
you
yeah.
want to make sure the sunglasses are UV protected. Right. So, one thing I did want to say too about the video games in children. Not only is there the warning about the seizure, and of course, like I said about the pediatrics, they're saying that it may cause aggression and obesity and attention deficit. There is a warning with these new 3D video games.
Really?
That the 3D video games in a visual system that is still developing. So any kid less than 7.
Okay.
That these 3D video games, somehow they may trick the eyes, and so they may not learn how to use the eye muscles correctly. It might cause strabismus. It may not cause, but it might influence whether a kid is going to get strabismus or not, meaning the eyes drifting or crossing. So that one has not been, that's not proven, but there's little warnings on some of these 3D video games too. So some of those might influence the eyes more so than a regular video game.
So parents with
Be
children
aware.
under 7 should not have them playing 3D video games.
Yeah, I'm going to
just
go
yet.
ahead and say, you shouldn't, because I don't know the answer. And there's at least some in the industry that are like saying, ooh, maybe they shouldn't be playing 3D video games.
Well, are your kids playing 3D video games? Let us know about it. Give us a call, 296-5467, and let us know what you think. Well, it sounds to me like this is a very interesting topic. We're going to finish up in the last section. We're going to talk about the future of this field. And this is Attila Seress with ThinkTech Hawaii. This is Attila Seress with ThinkTech Fridays. Thank you for tuning in. We're live and we're talking about your children's eyes. But before we continue, I'd like to introduce Jay Fidel. He is another ThinkTech host, and he has a special announcement.
Well, actually, I got a couple of special announcements, if you don't mind, Attila.
Sure.
First, I want to talk about the legislative briefing. The Hawaii Energy Policy Forum is doing a legislative briefing on January 10th at the State Capitol Auditorium in the basement of the State Capitol. It's quite something. It's the annual thing, to describe what's going to happen in energy in the legislature this year. So we'll have comments from the chairs of the energy committees, of course, namely Denny Kaufman from the House and Mike Gabbard from the Senate. And we'll have the chairs of the Energy Policy Forum, Mike Hamnett and Sharon Moriwaki, talking about the state of clean energy. We'll hear from Carl Friedman about the Metrics Project. We'll hear from Ray Starling about Hawaii Energy. We'll hear from Lieutenant Governor Brian Schatz about leadership challenges. We'll talk about the energy mix with Robbie Brad Rockwell. We'll talk about implementing the right resource energy mix with Hermina Morita, the PUC chair. We'll talk with the money committees, Marcus Oshiro from the House and Senator David Ige from the Senate Ways and Means. And we'll have closing remarks, as I mentioned, from Mike Gabbard of the Senate Energy Committee. So this is a great program. It's on January 10th from 11:45 to lunch and thereafter. So try to come on down to the state legislature on that day. I also want to talk about what we're doing on January 24th. This is Hawaii Venture Capital Association and ThinkTech. We do our annual Entrepreneur of the Year and Deal of the Year awards. We celebrate heroes in the tech industry and in the entrepreneurial community. It's at the Plaza Club, 11:30. It's a luncheon. If you want to attend, sign up at hvca.org, hvca.org. Thank you so much, Attila. Now back to you.
All right. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that. Where we last left the conversation, we're asking you to give us a call and tell us about your stories at 296-5467. And we're also talking here with Dr. David Young. He's a child ophthalmologist, and he's telling us about what parents can do to keep their children's eyes healthy, the kind of things that make a difference and the kind of things that don't. And, we talked about the various, old wives' tales about low lights and rubbing eyes and all the other kind of random things that that people talk about when they bring up children. But probably the best advice that you had was to make sure that you go to your pediatrician on a regular basis, get that first time screening every single time, and make sure that your children's eyes are healthy right there. Now, I kind of want to go on to what is the future of all this? What do you hope is going to happen, say within the next 10 or 15 years when it comes to child ophthalmology? I'm imagining that this is a field that is changing every day with new findings. So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, ophthalmology in general is a high-tech type of field, and a lot of it has to do with diagnosis. Like there are better types of computers and types of equipment that we have to diagnose what's wrong with the eye. The testing is better, and the types of surgeries that are out there getting better. So in terms of this idea about visual training, the future may be kind of along these lines where through study, through doing these researches that'll show specifically what type of, and right now it's just games, right? They're talking about, they just took a game off the shelf and then started playing it and asking and seeing if the adults did a little bit better.
Right.
But what if you can actually design the perfect scenario that would allow that person to basically learn how to see better? What aspects of this type of first-person shooter game, what's necessary in order to actually create a purely therapeutic type of, and I'll just say video game. I know people don't like that because they'll say video game, but maybe you don't have to call it that. But
Stimulation,
some kind of visual stimulation.
Kind of like Clockwork Orange. We pry the eyes open.
I know people don't like that movie.
No? Okay. It's a little bit different, yeah, but close.
The idea, though,
idea,
right? But you're right. That's kind of scary, though. The idea of programming and showing people what they can look at, and but so that might be the future to fine tune what type of environment would be best. And right now, I can't say. Like I don't know specifically. There's just not enough data out there.
But at least for now, maybe we're going to become more educated about the kind of things we should and should not do. The amount of, because I heard recently that your child should only get a maximum of 2 hours of screen time per day.
So that's the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that, 1.5 to 2 hours.
Wow.
Not more than that.
And so, as an adult, I spent a lot more time than that in front of a screen, and I think as a child.
Yeah. See, so again, I don't know if is this adult. I can't say whether, like, there's no proof again that it's going to hurt your eyes, but if the future includes just trying to interact with screens all the time, we will have to figure out what is the best way to keep your eyes from getting tired and irritated. Like I said, some people actually have fatigue from being on the computer screen all day. Is it that, or is it the work environment where they're at? Is the air conditioning on and actually making the eyes more dry? Are they not blinking enough? Are there contacts in there and they're getting all dried out? Like, the best person for you to see would be your eye doctor to actually, you can tell them what is your work environment, what do you do all day, how do you use your eyes? And then they can kind of look and see, make sure your glasses are right, make sure your contacts fit right, kind of work with you how old you are, because things change as you get older. And then so the best thing is to go back and see your eye doctor. Hopefully you have an ophthalmologist, so your ophthalmologist, or your optometrist, so your optometrist. And then you go ahead and go out there and get a professional opinion on how to best use your eyes.
No, that makes sense. And I guess the first person to listen to is yourself in that respect, right? See if you have any sort of pain, migraines, headaches, like you said, any sort of dry eyes, red eyes, those kind of things. And then maybe make a note of your environment and see how that could be affecting it. And then see a professional to see if you can actually repair
But
the
that's why
damage.
for me it's a lot of fun, because the kid doesn't complain. So a lot of times that's more like, oh, what's going on? You got to try to play with them and kind of get them to trust you, and that part of it, that's the fun part for me for pediatric ophthalmology. But there is this added concern because of what we talked about earlier, in that a kid can be threatened by this idea of amblyopia. Whereas an adult, that never happens. That doesn't happen. But as a kid, you got to get screened early enough that if there is a problem, you can intervene before that critical age where the brain stops learning how to see. So that's why, it's so hard for kids, because it's hard to do the exam because they're screaming, they don't like it, they're not going to tell you what's wrong, and yet you got to do it early, because otherwise you may miss the chance to improve the vision if you do it too late. Like if you're later than age 8 or 9 or 10, you may have missed your chance.
Yeah, I think even, don't some schools also require it?
See, that's great that the schools will do that vision screening, and sometimes they'll do it on their own. There's different clubs that'll go out and do it on their own. I think that's great. Something that's going to go ahead and, but that's just a screening. That's the thing, is that that's not an official way. The way you should do it is through your pediatrician.
Well, and that's the thing, is that if it doesn't get fixed early, then they underperform in school and with other relationships, and it can affect them for life.
So the future's bright, as long as people, pay attention and actually go ahead and listen to their kid and do what their doctor says.
So listen to your children. listen to the children, okay? Not just daddy.
Let me watch, more and more TV. That's not what I mean. I don't mean that.
More Thomas the Tank Engine.
Right,
That's all I get to hear. So more than that. So listen to them and really pay attention. Pay attention to yourself to see how your environment could be affecting it. Look out for any sort of trouble with reading or writing with your children. That sounds like a good tip. And really just, I like the idea of limiting screen time. It just seems to be like something that's more and more difficult to do.
Yeah, it really is. So hopefully, I'm going to throw it back. Hopefully the technology actually will somehow move away from just screens. Maybe there's a way to do that.
I don't see it.
That's definitely not my area of expertise, but maybe there's a way to do that. Why do we have to interface with screens all the time?
I guarantee you right now there are probably 50 commercials running for a number of book readers, either from Amazon or for Barnes & Noble, the Nook. I'm even starting to see that, obviously we don't even have bookstores here in Hawaii really anymore. They've all kind of closed down because everything's going into this digital format. And, if the idea of sitting down and reading your child a digital book at the end of the day is what we're going to expect, then that counts as screen time right there.
Yeah, but it's so hard because actually that type of screen, like you're saying, some of these, the Kindle, because you can change the font, it's opened up a whole new world to people that have visual disorders. Otherwise they couldn't even just read a book. They'd have to hold the magnifying glass and they couldn't do it. Now this has really opened up so much that they actually make it easier to see things. You can change the contrast, so there actually are benefits that technology is providing. It's not just all negative. But right, it's more just, okay, the technology's out there, we got to learn how to use it appropriately.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I know that there's the e-readers that are out there. They use something called electronic paper, which is black and white. So the Amazon has a version of that. That's the original Kindle, and then it's moved to LCD with the high-res displays. So that's what you see like on the iPad and the Nook and these other ones.
I don't know of data that shows that, although it may feel better to look on that type of e-reader rather than the regular screen, I don't know of data that shows that that really is better in terms of the health of the eyes. But I do that too. Like when I feel the Kindle is easier to read, but I don't. There's no proof that it damages the eyes to just use the iPad instead.
But try to get your 2-year-old to look at a little black and white screen versus
They're bored, right?
a nice pretty iPad with pictures and all that good stuff.
So yeah, we need more data. Like we need more data. We need the studies out there to actually say because
And are they doing
otherwise
that?
it's anecdotal. I'm sure. But I got to look into it more. But yeah, now I will. No,
Okay. And anyone else who's out there can also look online. Share the studies with us. I think that is very interesting. I think we're going to have a very interesting future with our children and how we are able to entertain, inform, and interact with them. So that's some really neat stuff. Well, it sounds to me like we've gone over all the different things that really make a difference. And I thank you for coming into the show.
No, thanks for having me. Thank
giving
you.
us the opportunity to talk about it. So, thank you to our chief engineer, Jack Waters, account manager, Patrick Leonard, and our board operator is Leah Rodriguez. And thank you, the listener. Your ears are what fuel the show. We'll be back next Friday, but be sure to tune in on Wednesday with Jay Fidel for more ThinkTech. Remember to appreciate life, do good to others, and have a great weekend. Thank you, and aloha.
Thank you.